Hello, class. This is a video on that'll help you with your project doing 1 point perspective blocks, but it's also a basic video on 1 point perspective. So let me put a title on the page here. So in the future, I'll have that. Hope I spell everything correctly. So this is your project, 1 point perspective blocks. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and we're going to do this with your marker. I know it may seem like it's easier to use in pencil, but at this point, I want you to use marker because get used to sketching with confidence and not worrying about erasing. That's very important when you're learning how to draw. Okay, step one, across the middle of the page, again, this is landscape, across the middle of the page, a nice even line. Okay, like so. Let me look at this so you can see the whole page here. There we go. Okay, off center, make a little mark. That's your vanishing point. And this line is your horizon line, but it's also the eye level. And this is the vanishing point here. Okay, we've already talked about some of the basics of 1 point perspective, but this is strictly on how to do this project. So step one, you've got this laid out. You don't have to label it, but I just did that for you guys. Somewhere down in the corner, let's start out with a block. Okay, very lightly, just some light lines. I always draw the two parallels first to make sure I get them parallel. So what we're showing is the front face of this block. And those lines are basically, you could say, parallel to the edge of the page or perpendicular to the horizon line. Same with this line here. That's parallel to the horizon line. So there's the front of this block. Keep it pretty light. Okay. Step two would be to, from these three corners, sketch in some light, what we call thinking lines. Okay. In other words, just construction lines. Do a dry run with your hand to kind of get yourself going in that direction. Okay. Don't draw the whole line in and connect it. You're going to end up with too many lines. Now, I find it easier if I turn the page because this is my go-to position. I go almost horizontal, but off to the right a little bit. I can get a pretty good, accurate gauge right there. But see how light those are? So this my dry run, and then, okay. I think you can see that. Okay, so the next step now, you've got the block, front face of the block, and you've got where that projects to the vanishing point, but we need to select a depth. So just arbitrarily a depth right here on that line. That's how deep it'll be in space. So this line is going to be parallel to the next line I draw. That's very important. You make those parallel. And then across here is parallel. You don't want it going up. The back side of this, I'm not going to draw the line in the back side of that is the same as the front, but because it's in perspective, that back side face is smaller. Okay, so that's a view. Let me back up a little bit. This is the sky. The horizon is right here. And where the sky meets the ground, that's the horizon line. Okay, it's also the eye level. So when I say eye level, I'm looking at this box, I'm standing up and I'm looking down at the ground a few feet ahead of me, and I see this box sitting there. Or think of this as a square building. I'm up in a helicopter, and this is what the building would look like from the sky. Okay. Darken those in a little bit. Okay, so that's a block below the horizon line. I started out with just this square, and then I project to the vanishing point from those three corners. This one you can't see, so don't bother with that one. Okay, now a block that's sitting on the horizon. I'll make more of a tall block. There's the front face of it. Perpendicular to the horizon, parallel to the horizon. Or you can think of it as parallel and perpendicular to the sides of the paper. Okay, from these 3 points, go to the vanishing point. See, I'm turning the page. I can draw a more accurate line. Actually, you're only going to draw from 2 corners. Okay. You can see neither the top nor the bottom when it's at the eye level. Pick an arbitrary depth right about here. Okay. You could think of that would be like a building. You're walking down the street and you see a building. Okay, now one above the eye level. Let's do like a flat slab here, floating in space. The more you sketch with a marker without worrying about erasing, the better you're going to get. Okay, I've been doing this for 45 years, and I've drawn boxes probably 1,000,000 times. So the more you draw, the better you're going to get. Okay, so now in this case, you've got 3 points that go to the vanishing point. So do a little dry ghost line. Okay, that looks pretty good. I know if you had perspective in high school, you might have used a ruler. What we're learning how to do is using sketching as a thinking tool. Rulers just slow you down. Okay, and you can see my thinking lines. Okay, pick an arbitrary depth. Let's pick right about here. Okay, that's going to be parallel to this line. And then from that point, it's going to go up parallel to this line. Okay, so there's a block. Because it's above the eye level, I can see the bottom of that block. Down here, it's below eye level. I can see the top of that block. At the eye level, I can see neither the top or the bottom. So your assignment is to fill this up with at least 9 to 12 blocks. It's important with perspective, though, is to have overlap. I'm going to make one more box to show you what I'm talking about. So make this as light as you can. Then we're going to use a thicker marker to finish this off. So I want to add depth. And let me back up a little bit. When you make this first block, don't make a little tiny little block like this. Make them big so that these are going to have a lot of overlap. That's one of the keys of perspective, is to have depth, and that's shown by overlap. So behind this block, I'm just going to make a rectangle. You're not going to see the whole rectangle. See that? You can't see the bottom of it. It comes down into here someplace. See that? Okay, so from this corner, you're going to go to the vanishing point. You need to know where this corner is. Even though you're not going to draw it, there's going to be a hidden line that goes off to the vanishing point. But I'll sketch it in there. Okay, so it's this line right here. Let's pick a depth out here someplace. I'm going to darken that a little bit since it is. Okay, so that's the assignment, is to fill this up with overlapping blocks. You could put another one back here. You start out with the rectangle, parallel to the sides and the top. Vanishing point, vanishing point. I need to know kind of where that is, because I do want to have a line that goes to the vanishing point. Now I'm going to darken this in so you can kind of get a better idea with the overlap. Now, let me back up a little bit. When I darken in like a finished rendering or some kind of a sketch that I want to make look a little more finished, I do all the vertical lines first. I can just go bam on everything. And it gets me in that parallel mode where all the blocks or all the lines are parallel instead of going from one to the other. Okay. So when you're all done and you've got tons of overlap, then come back with a thicker marker. But notice how I'm doing all the vertical. It's quicker. That way you're not rotating the paper back and forth. And you'll find that, at least for me, I can draw nice straight lines when I'm drawing vertical right toward myself. If I'm going off to the side, sometimes I'm off a little bit. But this is more for making a finished sketch where you're kind of going back over it. Okay, the next thing I'll do is the horizontal lines. And I turn the paper because, like I said, I do better verticals. I can make them very straight. And then the last thing, I'll draw the lines that go to the vanishing point. Watching, making sure that they do, in fact, go to the vanishing point. Okay, see the overlap I've got there? That's why that's so important. So if you were to do one more, you can do another box, a huge box, let's say right here. You can draw them in anywhere. And then you're going to go to the vanishing point. I could go on forever with this. Pick a depth. I'll just do this real quick. So there's yet another box. One good way to get your lines going to the vanishing point, I turn this so that this becomes a vertical line that's aiming right at me, and I can see if it's aiming to the vanishing point. Same with this. If I kind of turn it, I can kind of get a. So see how you can add overlap? You can just keep adding boxes behind it, but if you start out with some fairly small ones in the front, not this small down here, that's too small. But just keep filling up the page above, at, and below the eye level. Okay, I hope that helps this project. And like I said, when you're all finished, I want you to sketch with marker. And when you outline these in thick marker, these little thinking lines will tend to disappear. It makes the sketch look nice when you can kind of see some of the depth created by the vanishing point lines. But I just use the fine tip of your marker, just the fine tip. That looks better than trying to go over this 3 or 4 times. Don't do that. It'll take forever. Okay. All right, that concludes the video. Hope it helps. See you in class.